You are listening to the Primitive Intelligence Podcast, episode 507, Show Me the Mummy. That wasn't the original title, but I have something special. I've got a special guest. You may recognize this voice.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Rocco is back. How many episodes can we expect you to be back for? I don't need that pop-up.
I don't know. Maybe every
Well, there we
one.
go.
We'll see. It's only been almost 10 years since the last time I was on a podcast.
I've been harassing Rocco for 9 years to get back on the podcast. But you were right. We did do one live stream.
I thought
it was Outcast. And by that time of Outcast, I had kind of given up on uploading it as the Primitive Intelligence, so it kind of slipped my mind. But once I went back and redid season 3 like a month ago, I came across that episode. I was like, holy crap, we did do a live stream. And that was the one where I was talking about.
What year was
that? Was 2018. It's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while. So
that makes me feel better that it wasn't almost 10 years ago. So
a proper podcast.
The last 10 years went by fast.
Yeah, a proper podcast. Yeah. It's bin since season 2, episode 13 that you've been on.
Wow,
it's been a while. Now
that's way too long.
Primitive Intelligence years, that's only 3 seasons. Yeah.
So that I'm not that. It hasn't been that far.
Yeah,
then.
if you're
That's
listening
good.
straight through, like now, it wouldn't seem that long, but in reality, it's been that long. So we're going to talk about the Nazca mummies in this episode. I've got a ton prepared. You don't have to have anything prepared, but this is a crazy story.
Well, I'm glad because I have nothing prepared. So this is my entertainment. So entertain me. I did see a short video, but I don't know much. So I'm looking forward to learning something.
This is going to be something. Now, if this sounds strange to you, if you're listening, we are not in the same studio. We're trying something different because I think this makes it easier because we don't have to have it doesn't take long to get from my house to your house or vice versa. But we can be like, hey, let's record, and we can just sit down and record, and we don't have to move gear. We don't have to do all that. So Rocco's at his house 5 miles away, and I'm at my house, and we're going to try it this way and see how it works. So without any further ado, episode 507 of Primitive Intelligence Podcast starts now. Okay, so the original title I had for this episode was The Strange Tale of the Nazca Mummies. And I thought I had it all figured out. And I kept reaching out to you, like, hey, do you want to get in on this episode? And you had to get your stuff together. You hadn't had your microphone set up in a while. And I just kept on finding more and more and more. What, 2 days ago, I'm like, I've got 6 pages of notes for this. I've actually edited this down to 10 pages now.
Wow.
It's a story.
Where when I was in college and you were going to do a presentation, you'd always try to get more material because it was never long enough. And you're doing the opposite. You're trying to, shave some things off.
The crazy thing about this is it's not as cut and dry as you think. And every time I think I have all the information that I need, something else pops up, and it just, everything that I've found before gets put into a different light. So I got to re-edit I was going one way. You first told me about these a couple weeks ago on the phone, right? And you're like, hey, have you seen the Mexican mummies, alien mummies?
When I just saw a picture, and I laughed because it looked to me, from what I saw, to be like a something like an 8th grader or even earlier would have done. I don't even want to say it looked like paper mache. I can't really put my finger on it, but it didn't. It struck me as funny.
Yeah. As soon as you told me that, I had, when I was using my earbuds, so I looked at the phone, I pulled it up, and I saw the pictures, and I went, oh, that's fake. Immediately. Well, that's absolutely fake. Right. There's no way those are real. And I kind of forgot about it, but I looked at them. Now, we both listen to Mysterious Universe. It's another podcast.
Yes.
They cover all kinds of topics. And I told you, I was like, they're going to cover this. They're going to talk about it, and they're going to bring up the similarities to Rex Gilroy, who I believe passed away. He's a paranormal investigator with some like questionable plaster casts, I guess is the best way to put what he shows.
Right.
And
But some a lot of times when you see plaster casts, well, if you think Bigfoot, if you want to think of a plaster cast of a Bigfoot foot, sometimes they don't always look the same. So
no, but he'd have like
uh,
the one that just always sticks in my mind is like it looks like an alien fell out of a spaceship and landed face first, like Wile E. Coyote, and it like it is like little dinglings hanging out the bottom. It's, it's what the hell is that?
yeah,
So that's what I initially thought, and they did. They covered it in their next episode really briefly, but they mentioned something that I didn't know, and they said that this is not the first time these mummies have appeared, and that's what got me going down this rabbit hole. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, the
I don't know what you're
well,
talking about.
to the average listener, you may, but on September 12th, 2023, the Mexican government held their own congressional hearing on UAPs. This was immediately taken over by the fact that two alien mummies were uncovered during this congressional hearing. If you look this up, all you'll find is two scientists or scientists unveil two alien mummies to the Mexican Congress. And that's all you hear about. You don't hear about the hearing at all. You just hear about these mummies. And everybody's tearing this apart. Absolutely everybody's tearing it apart. But also in attendance for this congressional hearing was Ryan Graves. And if that name sounds familiar to you, Ryan Graves is one of the three testimony witnesses that were in the U.S. congressional UAP hearing. So
Yeah, I didn't know
yeah,
that.
he's the retired Navy pilot who also founded the ASA, Americans for Safe Aerospace. He's the one who gets been getting all these reports from military and commercial pilots, and he's building a database. And he's the one who had contact with the dark gray cube in the sphere, in the clear sphere. So this guy's legit, right? So as soon as I heard he was involved, and you see very little about this, I was like, oh, so there's got to be something to this. What you don't hear though is that not only was Ryan Graves there, but there was also 10 other speakers from Mexico, United States, Argentina, Brazil, France, and Japan. You don't hear anything about this.
All about
All about
the
UAPs.
mummies, or
Yep, they're
okay,
all there in this congressional hearing. Now, I'm going to circle back to the hearing at the end of this because it's its own. In order to get the meat and potatoes of this, we got to learn the story. So the day after the hearing, and forgive me because I do have notes crazy over here. I'm scrolling through as I'm going. Ryan Graves posts on his Twitter or X, whatever it is, and as soon as I see this, I'm like, this is going to be interesting. Let me see what he has to say, because it's Ryan Graves. This is word for word his tweet. After the U.S. congressional UFO hearing, I accepted an invitation to testify before the Mexican Congress, hoping to keep up the momentum of government interest in pilot experiences with UAP. Unfortunately, yesterday's demonstration was a huge step backwards for this issue. My testimony centered on sharing my experience and the UAP reports I hear from commercial and military aircrew through ASA's Witness program. I will continue to raise awareness of UAP as an urgent matter of aerospace safety, national security, and science. But I am deeply disappointed by this unsubstantiated stunt. And I read this and I was like, okay, the alien mummies, a little bit of a stunt, but that seems like he's talking about more than just these alien mummies.
right.
So was it all stunt? Was this entire congressional hearing a sham? Maybe. But in order to figure this out, we got to take a look at the main players of this entire story. This isn't just about these mummies in a congressional hearing. So we've got our four main players. and you may have heard some of these names, and maybe not. Jaime Maussan, sometimes goes by his full name, Jose Jaime Maussan Flota. He's a Mexican journalist, he's a TV personality, and he is a ufologist. This guy is very hoax adjacent, and he always has been. I have heard him described as not being a charlatan himself, but being very gullible. Some of the things that he has been involved with. Now, if you've got your phone handy, look some of these up, and you will see.
All right.
Just do like a image search. Back in around 2007, do you ever remember hearing about the Metepic creature?
I don't think so.
So the story goes that Mexican farmers were there was this creature that was kind of terrorizing their farms, destroying crops, getting into buildings, damaging, like attacking their animals. So the Metepic creature, this gets pushed by Jaime Maussan, who now, for all intents and purposes, from what I've seen, he is a legit air quotes journalist. He's been on Mexican TV shows for 40 plus years. He was one of the hosts of their version of 60 Minutes. So this guy's got some credentials behind him. So puts his weight behind this Metepic creature, and it turns out it's a skinned monkey. They just
Wow.
skinned the monkey and they took pictures of it.
That's the extent they went. They were sitting around a room and they went, "What could we do to make a creature? Let's skin a
Yeah.
monkey or shave a
No.
monkey."
They skinned it. This is not shaved.
Oh, they
They
skinned
skinned it.
it.
Like you can see like the muscle and
Oh, that's
like it wasn't
brutal.
alive, obviously, but it
Wow.
it was. So that's like the first thing. Next up, have you ever heard of the Roswell slides?
No.
Okay, this is back in 2015. The story behind this is that an elderly couple, they buy a house, and in the house they find a box that has all these old slides. And if you're younger, what I'm talking about by slides is when cameras used to use film, sometimes you could get them developed as photos, and sometimes you got to slide, and you got to take that slide and put it into a projector to like cast it onto a screen. So they find these slides, and in the slides they find two pictures of an alien body at Area 51. In comes Jaime Maussan. This is incredible. Starts pushing the story. They create the Roswell Slides Paranormal Investigative Center, and they start this movement called Be Witness. They have this big event. They raise money. They're charging money for tickets. They raise so much money for this. They're putting all the information out. And then somebody looks at the pictures and they're like, why? If this is a alien in Area 51, top secret Area 51, why does it have a placard by it like it's sitting in a museum? So
Oh
yeah,
no. Somebody was on vacation.
they pose this question to this Roswell Slides group, and they're like, "We've been trying to enhance the photos to see what this placard says. It's unreadable." So this person, I don't know if it's the same person who posed the question, but they find this free trial software to unblur photos, and they unblur it, and the placard clearly says the mummified body of a 2-year-old boy. It was it was just in a museum. It was just
Wow.
a mummy in a museum.
So somebody was on vacation and happened to be in a museum and took some pictures, and this is
And
what
they
happens. And all of a sudden now they're making
y-
money off it, saying
yeah,
it's an
they
alien.
probably sold it to Masan. Like I don't think Masan ever was the mastermind behind any of this, but people were just like, "Oh, this guy will believe anything. Let's sell him this." Then there's in 2016 the Demon Fairy. This you may remember.
I don't. It doesn't ring a
Do you
bell.
remember pictures of this like 8 or 9 inch tall Mothman looking creature that was floating around the internet for a while?
No.
Okay, so the
No.
Demon Fairy, I don't know a lot about the story behind it, but this turned out to be the remains of a bat that had some sticks and other stuff glued to it. But Musan was not behind it, but he was involved in this. And then in 2017, he appears on a show called Unearthing Nazca. Now, Nazca, this show was put out by a company called Gaia TV. And Gaia TV they're known for their conspiracy theory related shows. So it's like a streaming service online, right? But they got started out as like a yoga pants equipment company or something like that. Like I don't know how they got
Really?
into like video streaming, but they did. So that's Jaime Maussan, right? And we're going to talk a lot about Unearthing Nazca, but that's Jaime Maussan. Next up is, and I might murder this name, I'll do my best, but Jose de Jesus Zelis Benitez. He is the director of the Scientific Institute for Health of the Mexican Navy.
Wow.
Okay. He was also the doctor that was in charge of the Roswell Slides project. He's
Wow.
also
Okay.
the doctor in charge of the mummies in the Unearthing Nazca show. So he's got a long history with Musan and on not good things. Then we have Konstantin G. Karaktov. He is the deputy director, or was the deputy director of the St. Petersburg Research Institute of Physical Culture in Russia. He is also known as the Russian scientist who photographed souls. He created a camera that can
Okay.
photograph souls, like what they call a curling device.
I believe
Yeah.
that's correct. Yeah.
He's one of the main scientists in Unearthing Nazca. How he knows anything about mummies, I don't know. And then we get maybe one of the most important players of this, who is suspiciously absent. He stays out of the limelight a lot on this. His name is Thierry Yamin. He's a French explorer, possibly the founder of, but definitely the director of the Inkari Institute in Peru. Now, this is an archaeological research center in Peru, like a non-governmental research center. He's labeled a pseudo historian, and this is mostly because he's searching for the lost city of Paititi, which is like this South American utopian society that disappeared. So there's really nothing wrong with that. I mean, if he thinks that's there and he's going out to find it,
That sounds
I
pretty
mean,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe pseudo historian because there's no real evidence of it, but okay. But he's also the contact point and the originator of the story behind Unearthing Nazca.
Oh my God.
It just keeps getting, like, the rabbit hole keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So Unearthing Nazca, web series, like, all the way. So remember back in like mid 2010s to 2020, there would be shows that had web series, but one episode might be 5 minutes long, one episode might be 30 minutes long. They kind of just went by what the content was. And that's what this was put out like. It was mostly updates. One might be 5 minutes, one might be 3 hours. So you didn't know what you're getting. So I found I had a free 7-day trial to Gaia through Amazon Prime. So I was like, sign me up. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to just binge watch this entire thing. So that I sat down for one day and I just watched this entire show. The story of it is that, now, remember, everything here has got to be colored by the fact that Gaia TV is very conspiracy theory related. And you got to look at the credibility of these four main players in all this. So Musan is approached by Thierry Yamin, who was approached by this man named Mario, who had uncovered some very unusual mummies. Somehow, Musan puts together this international team of scientists, archaeologists, journalists, and Gaia, right? And they go down to Peru and they go, we're going to figure out what's going on. They start to get a hold of these Peruvian mummies. So the first one they get, mummy number 1, nicknamed Maria. Now, a lot of the information I'm going to give you on these mummies, because this was an entire series I went through, I've taken some of the information they found at towards the end instead of doing this whole chronological thing because there's just too much information. So some of this wasn't found immediately, but I'm going to give you the rundown. So Maria was a female, approximately 5'6" to 5'7". In the fetal position, she was found. An elongated skull, but very human-like, aside from there was no ears. Now, the elongated skull isn't immediately a shock because there are South American cultures that would do body manipulations to elongate the skull. So that's not that strange. But what is strange is the hands had 3 fingers each. The fingers, instead of like the 3 phalanges, the 3 segments that we have, had 6 segments each. So they were really long. The toes were the same way. It was covered in this white dust or paste, and that's not normal for mummies of that time or area. There are pictures of other mummies that were found that were wrapped more like a traditional mummy. Also, is not typical because there were still organs in place. There was evidence the brain, liver, spleen, and intestine were still intact. So it's like this person died and was just mummified. Kind of Egyptian style in the way that there was herbs packed into the body. It had a very human-like skeleton aside from the hands and the feet, the finger bones, like all that were way more robust. They did DNA testing and confirmed that it was female. Carbon-14 testing confirmed it was about 1,700 years old. So this
Wow.
is 2 different tests. So Massan's group and Gaia's group were doing their own tests independently, and a lot of their information was matching up. So um, I have here 245 to 411 AD. Like one's said 249 to 410, and one said like 245 to 411. So this like the entire about 1,700 years. But they also found that of the DNA they could test, about 25% of it was human DNA, but not modern human DNA. No DNA that they could sample matched modern humans. So that's kind of strange. They tested all parts of the mummy. Again, this is according to what the show is telling you. Tested all parts of the mummy, hands, feet, like shoulder, tested from multiple spots, and verified that every part of that mummy is one being. They thought maybe the hands were chopped off and they put something else on, all that. No, it's one complete being. Really, really strange. Really well done. Like when you look at this, you're like, this is amazing information.
But they did, so they found human
Mm-hmm.
DNA that was like 1,700
Mm-hmm.
years old. So if one would think that, they're trying to pull a fast one, then they actually had to desecrate something to get this the material, like the bones and the organs. And go ahead.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
and you gotta start to think: are the samples they're sending out the samples that they're taking from these mummies? Like, there's a lot of questions about the authenticity of any of this. But the fact that Gaia seemed to be doing their own independent research into this, and it was matching up, like they were there. Like there was like a director of programming that was there, and the woman who was hosting it, she wasn't just like a host in the studio talking about it. She was like on site. She was watching them take these samples. She was there at the research centers when they were doing the testing. She was watching the results come out. Like if that was hoaxed, then everybody is in on it. And it's not impossible. But it was done really well. So like when you're watching this, you're like, is this real information? Is this really happening? It gets crazier. So this one, 5'7". So this is not what we saw in Mexico. Not at all. Mummy number 2 appears. And I'm giving you this information in the way the show presented it. They get the first mummy, they're waiting on test results. Mummy number 2 appears. Now, mummy number 2, they nickname Victoria. Victoria has no head. It's in
Okay.
seated position, kind of like it was sitting on the floor. Its knees are bent, its arms are on its knees. It's about 18 to 24 inches, so more like what we saw in the Mexican congressional hearing. It's got that same white powder on it, 3 fingers, 3 toes. They do the scans. Its skeleton is way simpler than Maria. It's not human at all. It appears to have arteries and veins, tendons. Its skin was lizard-like. They dated it. It was younger than the first mummy, about 1,000 years old, not 1,700. It had this really small chest cavity. And they're looking at this one, and they're all going, like on camera, they're all like, no. Like, what is this? This has got to be like a doll, or it's got to be like put together. Like, what is going on with this?
Right.
But they're getting this 1,000-year-old information out of it. Now, they didn't pull any DNA out of this one. All they're saying is that the tests they got, the samples they got, were 1,000 years old. As they're waiting on the test results from this one, mummies 3 and 4 appear. These ones are nicknamed by the team, nicknamed Alberto and Josefina. That's remember this. In the show, the team nicknamed Josefina and Alberto as mummies 3 and 4. Again, they're small, 18 to 24 inches, covered in white powder, humanoid but not mammal. The female appears to have eggs, 3 eggs inside, a apparent birth canal, and this weird metal plate on its chest. The jaw they find, because these ones do have their heads, it's got a jaw, but it's not like ours. It's like a little flap. And they said there's no way it could chew, but it could swallow. According to their scans, the bones all seem to fit. Non-human skeleton. You know how we've got like 2 bones in our forearms and 2 bones in our legs?
Right.
1 bone in the forearm, 1 bone in the legs. Very similar to what we're seeing in Mexico. Long legs, a lot of ribs. Like a lot of ribs, like from the shoulders all the way down to the pelvis is ribs, and they kind of go across the body. No nasal or sinus cavities, and it's got this weird small chest cavity, like both of them. As they're looking at those, mummies 5, 6, and 7 show up. These ones are nicknamed the family. Small, 18 to 24 inches. They look like Victoria, Alberto, and Josefina. They can't do a lot of testing on them because they're very brittle. And the interesting part of these is they all look similar, but not the same. And not in like a weird way, but what you would expect in a species. Like if you put 6 humans together, you would tell that they're all the same species, but they all going to look a little bit different. It's just weird, but they look like these Mexican mummies, but yeah, you're just kind of going, oh, these are the same ones, right? Then there's a tease. This is like at the end of the episode. There's a tease of another mummy. And I'm like, okay, here comes another mummy. Can't wait to see this one. The next episode starts. It has nothing to do with the mummy. It is July 11th, 2017, and it is a press conference in Lima, Peru. It starts off, they show everybody there. You've got Musan, you got Karaktov, you've got Benitez, you've got people from Gaia, you've got other doctors and scientists there, other archaeologists, got all these people. Suspiciously absent, Thierry Yamin. He's not there. And they ask him about this. Where's Thierry? He says, I don't know. He's supposed to be here. We want him to be here. This is his thing. This is like he brought this to us. Right. He's not here for the press conference. And one of the reporters is like, oh, I saw on his social media that he wasn't feeling well today. And Musan kind of says, yeah, he did say something yesterday. He didn't feel good. So you think, okay, he just didn't feel good and he's not there. This series is more focused on Musan than on Thierry, but it's clear that Thierry is the guy. He's the one with the contacts to people with the mummies. Him and his Inkari Institute are the ones that are getting all the tests put together, and he's not there for it. It's very strange. But this press conference goes on, and Musan is clearly not happy. The Peruvian government, the Ministry of Culture, not interested at all. They don't want anything to do with this. He even goes so far, he tries calling them. They won't return his calls. He goes to the Ministry of Culture to go speak with them, and they're like, "Send us an email, get out." They want nothing to do with it.
Wow.
So they actually
But
they're
just so I'm on,
okay.
sorry, just so I'm on the same page though, these are all, no one claimed, they're just mummies,
They're
right? That's how they're presenting them, as just
just as mummies.
Peruvian mummies.
Just as mummies, yeah.
Okay.
So even in this press conference, like, no one has said the word alien. I think Gaia at one
Right.
point, they look and they go, "These are very strange. Could they be alien?" And they just ask the question, but they never label them as alien. They're bizarre. They're very weird. In this press conference, they talk about that, right? So he's mad that they're dismissed this out of hand. He's got Peruvian journalists there. He's like, "You guys, talk to your government. Get them involved." They're telling him, "We don't care. Like, these are this is garbage. It's basically you have arts and crafts on your hand. Do what you want." So this is 2017. Musan says right in the press conference, "I could take these to Mexico today." And like, as soon as he said that, I'm like, "Well, put that in the notes," because the Peruvians think it's crap. They don't want anything to do with it. He is very clear that he is not all in aliens on this. Very clear of this. States several times that he's only relaying what he's been told, what from Thierry, from the people that are handling the mummies. He's like, "I'm just a journalist. I'm giving you the information." He's using words like reportedly, apparently, we were told. He does not appear to be convinced of any of this. He just wants the information. You look like you have something to say.
Go ahead. I'm
It's a
waiting.
lot of
Uh,
information, right? So he talks briefly about this new mummy. They call it Wawiti. It means baby. And immediately Musan's like, "Listen, we're doing the respect that we should do to test this. There's issues." Immediately, he's like, "There's suspicions about this one." And all he'll say is that they're very skeptical because of situations. I kind of got that one out. They they've got trust issues on this one because of situations, but he won't say what they are. They then sit down at a table, and he looks at these Peruvian journalists, and he says, "Challenge us, ask us questions, tell us how we're wrong. Like, we don't know what these are. We don't know if they're fake. If we've found some offshoot of humans that we've never seen before. If it's just some weird like genetic I cannot talk. What is going on?
Anomaly.
Anomaly, some genetic anomaly. We don't know if it's bullshit. We don't know. Give us things to look for. Help us get this out there. Have other people look at it. Like, ask us questions. We're here for your questions." And they give him a few questions. They ask about the tribes that used to like do like the cranial manipulation and stuff like that. He's like, "That's a possibility." He's like, "But our DNA test isn't showing that they're human, modern human at all. Like, is this some kind of mix of Neanderthal and something else?" Like, they're not saying aliens at all. They show a little bit of him at the Ministry of Culture and them kind of throwing him out. And I think it's interesting because in one shot, they're kind of doing a voiceover and they just kind of have them in the background, like as they're leaving. And Musan makes this gesture as someone's like, kind of like, "Why aren't they talking to us?" And he just makes the money.
Yeah.
Right. So now we start to get into the title, "Show Me the Mummy." Show me. It's all about money. What's going on here? So we go into our next episode, which is about this baby, the baby mummy they find. It appears to be a baby. It's in the fetal position. Its face is kind of down. It's more similar to the first mummy they find. It's more human than the little ones because it's actually bigger than these little small alien mummies they're finding. But it has 3 fingers and 3 toes, and I have a question mark after that because they can't really tell. It looks like three fingers and 3 toes. And there's like this weird wool like its head is down. There's wool under its face, like holding it up. And they get a sample of this, but you never hear about this again. They never mention anything about this wool. And I think when I tell you what's up with this one, you'll understand why. So there's a few more episodes after this, but it's basically all the information I just gave you kind of filters in. And then it's the end of season 1. And I'm like, all right, let me have a
Wow.
snack and I'm in for season 2. There is no season 2. It ends.
No
The story
way.
ends. And I'm like, okay, what did I just watch? Like, this is crazy. If this is real, if this information that they're showing is real, then these mummies aren't human. What are they? Right? The three, like, I mean, dude, when I tell you the scans they show, it is, it, they're like, look, the arm comes down to the hand, and there's the 5 metacarpals, like you would expect to
Right.
see in the palm, but they fuse down into 3. There's ligaments, right? This stuff all matches up. It is really well done.
But see, and that's where I start to think, well, if you're going to take scans and there's actually going to have people looking at these things, how would you recreate a body that accurate? Like there has to be, or they're really smart people, or really smart cons. If it is a con, like how would you be able to do that and fool people? That's where my head goes. That's where the skeptic in me
Well,
goes.
here's where my brain went after all of a sudden it's like there's no season 2. The press conference. Was it real? Did Gaia just rent a conference room somewhere? Stage it to look like, because there weren't a lot of people there. Stage it to look like they had a press conference, put it on the show. That's a possibility. You've got all these the doctors and all this stuff. They're talking about something, but are they paid? Or did they even know?
Right.
Are they even doctors? We have no information on these people. We don't know. There's a lot of
And this
things.
was 2017 or 18. When was this?
2017.
2017.
But wait, there's more.
All right.
I do find Unearthing Nazca, the complete story. Now, this might be available on Amazon Prime because I was able to watch on Amazon Prime. Unearthing Nazca, the complete story. And I'm like, is this a similar story? Is this just something else? It's like 2020. I'm like, I'll start watching it and I'll see. It is. It's the story. It's this story. What it appears is that they started season 2, like they started filming, and something happened where they
Right.
couldn't get enough. It just wasn't working. So they just never had the season 2. What they did is they created this special, the complete story. So it's basically a recap of the original series with some additional very important information. Now, like I said, the original series, it was there was like the host, this woman, I think her name was Melissa Tittle. Turns out she's like a former FBI agent, right? So she's got some credentials, right? She's done other shows, a lot of them with Gaia, a lot of them focused on aliens, ancient aliens, things like that. This new show, though, she's shown, but more in the roles that she was doing on camera, like with the team. She doesn't, there's no hosting with her in this one. It's just narrated by somebody else. What we find out very early is that Mario, the man who contacted Thierry Yamin, who started all this, is a grave robber, a known grave robber.
No.
The Peruvian government wasn't interested because
Right.
grave robbers.
He's a
He's a
grave
grave
robber.
robber,
Right.
right? They also say, now this is, pay very close attention to this. One of Mario's associates sent the Peruvian government a letter with photos before any of these other people got involved. The Peruvian government got it and it went, you've desecrated these graves, you've manipulated these bones. Like we can see where you've ripped fingers off of hands. It was just like hands and skulls. Like this is all bullshit. We want nothing to do with it. So when Jaime Maussan, the hoax adjacent guy who's when he goes to them, he's like, "Hey, look what I found." They're like, "Get out of here." Right? It makes
Right.
sense. This guy's been on Mexican TV for 40 years talking about UFOs and aliens and all kinds of crazy stuff. He's been involved in all these hoaxes. Of course, they don't want anything to do with it. That's what would make sense. They never say this, but they lead you to that. The baby mummy, the Wawiti, the one that they had their suspicions about, it turns out that there was clear evidence that bones had been removed from the hand. So that's why they were like, we don't really want to talk about this. We're going to show it, but we don't want to talk about it. They find that cadmium chloride has been found in the white powder. Now, again, this white powder isn't typical for a mummy. It's
Right.
not typical in the area. And the white powder turns out to be what they call diatomaceous earth, which is
Okay.
basically like fossilized algae. They use it in like water filters. It's used in paint. It can be used to as like a desiccant, right? So it would make sense it would be used, but cadmium chloride doesn't occur naturally. It has to be manufactured.
Right. So we're and they didn't. I don't think they were making it 1,000 years
Not
ago.
until the 1950s,
Maybe they were.
like sometime in the
There you go.
1900s,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, okay, what? How was there? They kind of start floating this idea of was it like a more advanced society? They never really come up with a. They don't put a label on it. My thought is these mummies are 1,000 and 1,700 years old, but they were manipulated 100 years ago and then put back in these places with this cadmium chloride and this diatomaceous earth to make them appear old, to make it seem like
So it's kind of like a long
it's like a
con.
long
Like
con.
somebody, yeah, someone did this intentionally. Okay.
It's what it seems like, right? So, and now the new series or the special really kind of skirts around Musan, and they pay more attention to Karaktov, right? This Russian scientist. He's the one who's explaining stuff. He's the one who's talking about all these results. He's the one that's got all the information. It turns out that they wind up getting Mario to take them to the cave. They finally get him to cooperate. And he takes them to the cave. Now he's been showing pictures and he's been telling them about this place, right? There's pictures of sarcophagi. There's like he says it's like this big citadel, and there's these gates and there's these catacombs. And they show pictures of the like what he's finding, but it could very easily just be a couple rocks on top of each other with the camera really close to make it look like it's in a cave. That's what it looks like. Like it's just a forced
Right.
perspective. They get to this cave between Nazca and Palpa, Peru, out in the mountains, and it's just a hole inside the mountain. It's like 10 feet deep. It's the guy crawling.
It's just a case.
It's just a cave.
Right.
And
Right.
they're all very disappointed. They're like, "This is not what we were told. There's none of these sarcophagi. You couldn't fit a sarcophagus in here if you wanted to." But it does look like there were bodies removed from there, and there is this diatomaceous earth all over. This powder is everywhere. So they're like, maybe he was just talking it up, so we would listen to him. But this is where we really found him. They get more DNA test results back, and they want to test the baby against the Maria to see if they were related. Turns out they don't think they were. They only say it's probable they were the same species. Is how they word it. So you got to start listening to what they're not saying. They have a lot
Right.
of unknown DNA. There is some junk DNA, like stuff you would expect to find in a mummy. That's like just like dirt and stuff like that, bacteria. But there's again no matching DNA for modern humans, and they tested the unknown DNA against a database of millions of specimens. They then had this very interesting, weird but interesting segment where the woman who was the original host is doing an interview with a spokeswoman from the Ministry of Culture of Peru. And she asks her, "Why don't you guys want to be involved in this? Like, we don't even know what they are. This is cultural to your people. Why don't you want to be involved?" And this woman says, "Well, we've seen the evidence. We've looked at the pictures on the internet. It's clearly faked. There's been no tests run. There's been no scans
Right.
done. There's been no scientific method used. Nothing." And the woman doing the interview kinda gets us like, "Well, we've got test results. We've got the scans. We've done, this is what we've done. We'll give them to you. Are you interested now?" And this spokeswoman just circle talks right out of it. She's
Wow.
like, "We don't know where these things were found. We think they're grave robbers. It's not very likely we'll get involved." And that's the end of the interview. And I'm like, "What? Okay, this is weird." Like, even if it's not, wouldn't you be interested in proving it wrong? Like, as the government? Be like, "Look, give us everything you got. Give us the
Right.
bodies. We'll test them. We'll tell you exactly what they are."
I would want to, if it is grave robbing and let's say mutilation of whatever, of a corpse or whatever, I'd want to like bait them in and get them. It's like, okay, you did this, or that's what I would do. I'd be trying to hook them, at least to find where they got the bodies from, so you could at least put them to
Yeah,
rest.
it's something.
Um,
My
right.
conclusion on this is that she was not from the Ministry of Culture, and this was just a ploy. Like, they're trying to advance the story because
Okay.
we have no way of knowing. Like, just a spokesperson for the Ministry of Culture how are you gonna prove that? If this interview was done in
I
2017 and now it's 2020, who's gonna know? Who's gonna look at this woman and know who she is and go check with the Ministry of Culture to see if this is the person?
I did I did take a look. I think that's on Prime. The what you mentioned,
Oh,
the
the
program,
complete story.
for right now. It feels to me that, no, I can't remember when, but years ago. It's been a while since I uh, listened to like terrestrial radio. But at one point, I was listening to the same thing everybody else is on the radio, DJs. Um, and years ago, and it might might be 10 years ago, maybe a little around there, there was three or four people in this little crew, this morning crew. And the one guy believed in mermaids because he saw a documentary on mermaids. And I was like, clearly, like this, like you're not going to just fool anybody. But it was one of these documentary style programs. So it was completely fake, but they made it look like it was completely real. And that's what this feels
That's
like to me. It's
exactly
like,
what it feels
it
like.
almost feels like that, like they were all doing this and it should have been a documentary style something. And it kind of got out of control, or they realized they can make more money off
But
it.
it's going on for years.
Uh,
At this point, it's 3
well, that's what I'm
years.
saying. So
So,
it makes me wonder if these people are getting paid to talk, or somebody's paying them
of
to
course,
do
yeah.
research.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
So, and
right,
that becomes obvious here in a little while. So, they walk out of this, meeting, and they're like, "We gotta get these mummies. We either gotta take them to the government, or we gotta go get more official tests done. We gotta go to them. We gotta show them that we have these things." They go to, Thierry, and they say, "Hey, look, we need those mummies." And Thierry's like, "They're gone. They're missing." Like, they're missing.
that's a
Yeah,
coincidence.
neat coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
So, it looks like maybe that's where they were like, "Look, we're not gonna get anything else for a season," then they walked away. It's now 2018 before they get the mummies back. So, this Mario,
Okay.
he just moved them because he must have known they were talking to the government, and he's like, "I'm a grave robber. I don't wanna be around these people." So, he just took off. So, you get, Maria and Josephina. So, the original tall mummy and the short mummy that's got 3 eggs inside, like the little one.
Right.
And they're like, "We got them." Now this is Karaktov, and, I think Musan is involved in this, but it's mostly Karaktov and the woman from Gaia. They're kind of talking about this, and they get these super detailed scans. Like this might be the last chance we get. So they use these super like nano wave layered scans, and what they find out is that Maria, the tall mummy, appears to have been attacked. They find tooth marks in the skeleton, and they can also tell with the scan that there were some organs, but the ones that were missing appear to have been ripped out. So it's
Wow.
like she got attacked by an animal. The skull was similar to humans, but different in the auditory canal appeared to be different. But that could have been from the manipulation of the skull. But the bones seem more hollow. Now, this is where you start to hear people say, "Oh, they were bird bones and all that." But looking at the scans as they're showing them, it's not like bird bones, but they were just like there was more room inside. They were just like differently structured bones. That's the big one. And then they do Josephina, and they take this mummy and they do a 3D recreation of it to see if it could even walk. Like, is this thing even real? So they put it together and they realized that it could, but it'd have a really limited motion. So the hands, like the bone structure of the hands and everything were really simple. Only that one bone in the forearm, like it could move, but its hands would only be able to do this. Like we have all this articulation,
Yeah.
but it would just be very simple. But it was a really small being. But they're like, yeah, technically, this would work if it was alive. They then do this really detailed scan on where the eggs are. And they're able to determine that they are eggs because they're like, look, this is the metal plate, and you can't see anything behind it. These you can actually see through, but they're like kind of calcified.
But when you say the metal
Mhm.
plate, is that grafted or is it like a decorative
It
piece?
depends on when in the series you hear them talk about it. At one point, they say
Okay.
it's not grafted in the skin, and then at another point, they say it's
Okay.
under the skin. Right. So the
Okay.
story starts to fall apart. The more, if you watch the whole thing and you binge
Right.
watch it where you remember what they said a month ago, it starts to fall apart. But they look at these eggs and they see signs of a fetus
In the
in
egg.
the egg.
Okay.
Now, the egg could be from anything. And they don't really say, they don't try to make any kind of determination of what the fetus might be, but just that they see signs of a fetus. Then immediately there's a Peruvian governmental meeting. They now want to be involved. They get everybody together, all of them. They give all of their testimony, all their scans, everything they have. And they're like, we want you to be involved in this. We need your support on this. This is in your country. Do help us out. And the guy who's running the governmental, there's a whole thing. And he kind of gets his stuff together and he fixes his microphone. He goes, get the fuck out. He doesn't say it like that, but he basically just throws him out. He's
Right.
like, this is all bullshit. I want nothing to do with it. And they all walk out like, what do we do now? So the last thing you hear in this documentary is they get the mummies from Mario. They get 5 of them: Maria, Josefina, Alberto, Victoria, and the baby. And they give them to the University of San Luis Gonzagas de Ica in Peru. They're yours. You figure it out. And they walk away.
Wow.
And then I start thinking, is any of this real? Like, is any of this even, was this just a really clever, like you were saying, mockumentary?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right, let me think back about all this stuff that happened that I just saw. Um, okay, the names of the places are real. So I start looking up the names of the universities. There is a University of San Luis Gonzaga de Ica in the city of Ica. It does exist. There is where they had their test results, the carbon 14 done. The university, was it the Mexican Autonomous University in Mexico, wherever however it's worded, it does exist. Hmm. What about this press conference? That was really weird to me. If it was a press conference, there's got to be a record of it somewhere. So I start searching for this press conference. Sure enough, and I don't find good information about it. I think it was the hit I found was from The Sun back in 2017. But everything you search for right now is showing you this congressional hearing. So it was hard to go through all this stuff. But I do find an article from The Sun in 2017 talking about the Mummies of Peru press conference in Lima on that day by those people. The press conference happened.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, so this was actually happening at this time. Now, hold on a second. They said that Tierney Yamin posted on his social media that he didn't feel good on that day. Let me go look this guy up. So I go to Facebook and I look up Tierney Yamin and I find him. And it's the guy that's on the show. Like the picture is the guy that's on the show. There's current posts on there. There's posts between 2017 and now. I go back and look. Now, I don't find the post about him not feeling good, but at that time, he is posting stuff about these mummies. And you can't fake that on Facebook. You can either have the post there or
Right.
you can take them off. You can't redate them. So if this is a con, this is a long con to leave this stuff up and continue to post as this guy on Facebook.
Well, like how it's fascinating.
It gets more
If you're going to
fascinating.
have a long con that's been that could possibly be going back, even if you say 50 years or more, like even if you're talking about taking bodies and altering them, and then you just continue to revisit it, that takes a lot of
It takes a
patience.
lot of patience. But now I'm looking at all this information and I'm kind of like, is this real? Like, is this real? Did this really happen? Are these mummies really like some unknown specimen?
Right.
And I'm thinking about it, and I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking. And I'm looking at like the current news articles of the pictures of
Hmm.
these mummies, and I'm looking at them and going, those aren't the same mummies. They're really close, but they're not the same mummies. These things we're seeing in Mexico right now are real stiff. They're like,
Right.
these ones that they're looking at in the show, there's like spinal curvature. Like you can see, like there's like, yeah, their arms are to their sides, some of them, but they're not like when they pick them up, they're not like a stiff. It's like you're holding a little body. There's like curve. There's like, these aren't the same mummies. What's going on here? So I've verified that all these places exist. I've verified that the people exist. I scroll back up to the top of Yamin's Facebook page because something caught my eye. A press release. So this is right after the congressional hearing, right? So we have the hearing. Two bodies are shown. Now that's all I know. From what I understand, they show up at the end and they're like, "Hey, we got aliens." But immediately after, two things pop up. The National Autonomous University of Mexico. They speak up. And I'm like, oh, here we go. They're going to be like, we don't know who these people are. We never ran these tests. They republished a statement from 2017 stating that they worked on the samples. They verify that it was 1,000 years old. They say, look, all we did was verify the date. That's all we did. We don't know where they came
And
from.
the sample.
Yeah, the sample that they got.
Right.
We verified that the sample's like around 1,000 years old, and that's it. We don't know where they came from. We don't know what they are. All we know is, yes, we did. So the tests did happen of something, right?
Of
Of something.
something.
We don't
Right.
know what, but
Exactly.
tests did happen. So again, we're talking about a pretty big con here. Thierry Yamin.
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thierry Yamin on his Facebook page. And I'm going to read this. This was translated from French. I did see that he put up a better worded English one of this, but this is the first one I saw. And he says, "Hello, you are the very many to contact us about the presentation of two alleged reptile humanoid specimens last Tuesday to the Congress of Mexico. These two specimens are reportedly discovered in Nazca in 2017 and then shipped to Mexico several months ago. On behalf of all the members of the Inkari Institute, we would like to express our deepest disagreement over this outrageous situation. Without having the chance to examine these two alleged non-human mummies, we cannot verify their authenticity. The only mummified bodies we can give a blatant opinion about are Maria, Wawida, Albert, Josephina, and Victoria. These mummies are currently at the University of San Luis Gonzaga de Ica and have been studying them and analyzing them since 2019. Reminder, we never claimed, this is important, we never claimed the mummies in question were of alien origin. For this, we completely rely on the many analyses conducted worldwide by the Inkari Institute and its partners between 2016 and 2019. Based on these analyses, the two specimens studied were classified of unknown origin. The Inkari Institute does not go beyond this and prefers to leave that to the specialists of these issues to discuss the origin without prioritizing a hypothesis. The two specimens presented last Tuesday at the Congress of Mexico were left from Peru completely illegally without any authorization from the Peruvian authorities. These mummified bodies are part of Peruvian culture. Their place should be in the local museum in Nazca, not Mexico. He denounces what happened at the Mexican Congress. Nope, not involved, he says.
Right.
Interesting.
Smart.
Now, what about our four main players at this point in 2023? Jaime Maussan? Well, he's at this congressional hearing. You've got Benitez. He's at the hearing. You've got Krokotov. He's vanished off the map. 2020 was the last I've seen anything from him. That may have something to do with the situation in Russia with the war and all that. Don't know. Thierry Yamin? Well, we'll get to him after we talk about what happened in this freaking congressional hearing. So I'm thinking, I've sat through a couple of these this season already. So I'm like, I don't even know if I can find this. Like, does Mexico make theirs publicly available? Can I find a transcript, something, anything? I find, and I'll put links to all this stuff in the show notes, but I find airing of it. It looks like somebody maybe pulled off their DVR and put up on YouTube. I couldn't find anything official. So after a little bit of messing around, I realized I can just have Google auto translate the closed captions. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm reading this Spanish language congressional hearing. This is going to be fun. So I turn it on and I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at the bottom. And this guy's talking and he's like doing the opening comments. This guy sounds familiar. I look him on the screen. Who do you think it is? Jaime Maussan is running the congressional hearing. He's not just this.
How is he running?
I have no idea. He is running the Mexican Congressional Hearing. Right now, we start to see why Ryan Graves is like, this is a stunt. He's running the freaking thing. He's not just a guest.
But it's an actual government.
Actual government Mexican congressional hearing. He is running it. So he initially talks about, now again, I will say this about Maussan. I don't think he's particularly a bad person. I don't think he's the mastermind behind any of this. I think he really believes what he's doing is helpful because he's really passionate about it. But he just gets into these situations. Now, this is going to be really bad for him, I believe. This is going to be the end of his career, I think. So he talks about the U.S. disclosure and that Mexico should follow suit. He shows some footage from March 5th, 2004 of a Mexican C-26A that was followed and surrounded by 11 UAP. Now, this has been around for a while. Some people say they were just seeing the lights from oil wells, but The
Okay.
government is like, no, this is weird. Like, we know what oil wells look like. These were moving through the sky. He also shows video of these lights that appear near Tijuana and are fairly predictable. And people just get ready for them. And when they show up, they take pictures of them. And sometimes there's 4 of them in a square, and sometimes there's 6 of them in a line. But then U.S. aircraft will fly in from this ocean, and they'll disappear, and then they'll turn around and fly back. Like, they know they're like, what is going on with that? Then we get into all the people that are at this congressional hearing. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. We got Avi Loeb, right? He is the astrophysicist, and he's the head of the Harvard astronomy department. So this is, you've probably seen this guy recently. He talks about these observation stations they're building. He shows a slide of Oumuamua, right? Remember that really long, weird comet asteroid rock that came through the solar system a couple years ago?
Okay.
He's one of the
Yep.
scientists is like, that wasn't natural. Like, there's something weird about that. It slowed down when it got near Earth, went around the sun at a constant speed, went past us, and then once it was out of our kind of range, it sped up and left the solar system again. Like, there's something really weird,
Right.
and this has been,
That's not
yeah, it's
normal.
been, proven that there's something weird about it. And he starts talking about this thing that's going on right now. There was this meteor strike maybe a year or two ago over the Pacific Ocean. This thing came in way faster than it should have. Like, way, like, faster than stars move. He said it. And again,
Really?
this is through, he was speaking English, but they were translating over it, and then it was being translated by Google. So some of this may not be 100% because they turned down his microphone. I couldn't really hear what he was saying. But yeah, moving really fast. They're finding these little metal marbles that appear to, they were like created really fast and then cooled down,
Okay.
right?
I've heard of that
Yeah,
guy. I've heard of that. I've heard of it. I don't know anything
yeah.
about it.
But again, this thing came in really fast, and the metals they're finding don't appear to be naturally occurring. Like, it was artificial.
Right.
So he talks about that. Then they bring up Mariano Tello. He's the director of the Center for Attention to Society in Mexico, whatever, I'm not sure what that is. Basically talks about reporting, how reporting needs to be improved, and that they're getting more than 400 reports a day of UAP. Then they bring up Ryan Graves. Now, this is where I really start, like, this whole congressional hearing starts falling apart for me, because I know what Ryan Graves is saying because I've listened to him before, and I can kind of hear him over the translator, and what he's saying, at least through the translation, then back to a translation to English, is not what's being put up. It's
Oh, interesting.
close, but their translator is having a hard time. So she's like, and then he's like 6 points on, and she's trying to catch up. She's just like lumping like 3 paragraphs into a sentence. But basically, what he says in English, because I can hear it, is, pilots are seeing UAP every day. We need to start collecting data. The government needs to start lessening the stigma. This is global. It's not just in the U.S. It's all over the world. We got to start working together on it. He tells his story about those spheres, like the cubes and the spheres, and he says that his ASA has seen a huge uptick in reports since that first congressional hearing because people are less, weirded out about it. Then he bring in Robert Salas. This, you probably don't know the name, but you'll know the story. The Minuteman attack, the Minuteman UFO. He was there.
Okay.
He talks about it, and what he's, again, this is like a translation, so the translation. Basically, he was convinced that he gave them the wrong date when he filed his report. Because he told him, it was like March 24th, 1967. This light appears over the silos, the computers go down. Right? It's more, I'm simplifying this. And they call him back in, like, you sure about that date? He's like, yeah, it was the 24th. Like, you sure it wasn't the 16th? He's like, nope, it was the 24th. Like, are you positive? And he's like, thinking about it. He's like, yeah, because I was here on the 16th. And they go, well, then we have a problem because it happened twice.
Oh.
Yeah. So it happened twice at Malmstrom Air Force within like 8 days. Two reports. So his was really long. And he's an older gentleman, and he spoke really slow, and I could not sit through it. I that was the only story I got from him. I moved on because it was like a 3.5 hour video.
Wow.
Then they bring this guy Julio Derwish. He's the founder of the Association of Observers of Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena of Pilots and Air Controllers of Mexico. That's a mouthful. He starts off introducing himself, and then he says, I have a telescope. I know the stars. I know the constellations. And if you ask me, I can navigate by the stars. Okay, that's a weird way to. He then talks about how he's kind of assigned himself this duty of visiting ancient sites around the world. And he starts to notice that a lot of them have had contact with other beings.
Yeah.
That's a statement to make. Okay, maybe that's a weird translation thing. And then he says, we need to look at things from different angles. We need to have a more open mind. Okay, he's bringing it back. He says there's a lot of actual reports. They're not taken seriously. And then there's a quote here. This little paragraph he says. And I'm going to read this as this is translated, so the wording may be a little bit different, but you ready for this one? This is a guy in the congressional hearing. Now, remember, in the U.S. congressional hearing, it was very fact-based. There wasn't stories. They asked what they saw, but it wasn't like story time. It was very, very much fact-based, what they were telling him. This is like people just getting up telling UFO stories. So he says, I really care more about what we do to ourselves as humanity, what we do to our planet. The origin of the word human comes from humidity. We are 3/4 of water and 1/4 of earth. Other elements we are in proportion as the planet we inhabit. Each being must be composed with the main elements of your planet. We, animals, plants, trees, are children of the earth without the Pachamama. Gaia is our mother. We have to take care of it and respect it. We are made of atoms. We are energy. And the time has come to raise our vibration and frequency in order to expand our consciousness. It is the time to realize we are one with the cosmos and we are alone in the universe. That last sentence, I think, is a mistranslation just because of the context of what we're talking about. But maybe that is what he said, that we are alone in the universe. But since we're talking about UAP, it seems like a weird thing to say. But immediately, what jumped out at me is the definition of the word human is not derived from humidity.
I didn't think so.
No. The word human is derived from the Middle French word, I would probably pronounce similar, humane, but Humain, of or belonging to man. And that comes from the Latin word humanus, thought to be a hybrid of the word homo, meaning man, and humus, meaning earth. That makes a lot more sense, right? Man of earth. Pachamama is Mother Earth. In Amara and Quechua, it means she's an Incan goddess, either Mama Pacha, La Pachamama, or Mother Earth. So basically, just so you know, that word kind of stuck out, and there was no translation for it. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But I'm like, what? What? We got to raise our vibrations, and we're humidity. That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, and at a government hearing.
The government hearing.
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, they got to turn this around. So they bring in Enrique Colbeck Varega. He's a Mexican air traffic controller operator. He mentioned some stories about planes being forced to land by UAP. One that he witnessed where there was like 15 or 20 discs or globes that were blocking a plane from taking off. He says that UAP are a danger in the skies and that air controllers need to be taken more seriously. Okay, we're kind of back on track here. And then we get Andrea Perez Simodini. She's the director of commission to study the UFO phenomena of the Argentine Republic. Now, she's very down to earth, very much like half of what she says just basically says we need better reporting. But she's going through all these things. And she also says that many reports from Argentina pilots are discarded or met with harassment. So, okay. We're back. We're back to making sense. They bring up Yoshiharu Asakawa, the honorable congressman from the House of Representatives of Japan. Now, that's how they had it written down. So I don't know if he actually goes by the honorable congressman, but that's what he said. Now, the Japanese to Mexican to English translation was really rough. And I feel really bad for this guy because they weren't ready for him. He gets up and starts speaking. There's no translation. There's no one translating it. He's just talking, and people are looking around like, what's he saying? So I grab my phone and I start just recording it so I can translate it later. They then they stop him. They get the translation booth ready. They get him going again. There's nobody translating. But they turn his microphone down on the video because the translator should be speaking over him. There's nobody talking.
Right.
And finally she jumps in and she has she's so far behind. She's just like rattling stuff off. The only thing I got from my translation was he was talking to his Congress about UAP. He met someone from NASA and talked about it. And he started to tell a story about a UAP he saw that was multicolored and split in 4 pieces. And then the translation just went to hell. That happened to the next few people too. The guy from Brazil, Rony Tedo Vernet Braga. So all I got from his was that their first report was back in 1560, and then it was just dead air from the translator. All I heard was, and it was really, you just hear someone go, they're trying to translate, but I don't know if their microphone was dying. And then they had Michael Valiant from France, the Gaipan Unit for National Center of Space Studies, and I think he was talking about reporting. But again, it was just, and I had no idea. So all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, this is the stunt. They got the stories they wanted from the people they wanted to hear from, and then everyone else was just like, good luck. And that was the hearing. Then Wasan gets back up. Now, during all these things, the camera's panning over to these 2 boxes on the stage, like back and forth. And then they unveil the aliens. And immediately, you look at them and you go, these aren't the same bodies that they had in 2017. So I didn't really
Right.
watch any of that because it was like half of the thing. Masan says, I think it's a clear demonstration that we are dealing with non-human specimens and that they're not related to any other species in our world, and that all possibilities are open for scientific investigation. We are not alone. Benitez says X-rays, 3D reconstruction, DNA analysis have been done. I can confirm these bodies have no relation to human beings. Of course not, because they're freaking dolls.
They look it.
They look it, right?
That's what they look like.
And
Yeah.
then you think about what Yamin said, that these aren't the same ones. The ones that they had were still in Peru. Graves is like, this is all joke. But what about Yamin? Because I find out some information about Thierry Yamin. I think
Okay.
he's the mastermind behind this. I think the reason why he spoke out against Musan is because
Right.
either Musan or Benitez or someone else in that group took his shtick.
Oh.
Right? Now listen to this. Think about, you've seen the video where they compare the skulls to a llama skull, right?
Yes.
Those x-rays don't really match up with the x-rays you see in the show. Yeah,
Really?
they don't really match up. They're similar, but it looks like they've been edited to make it look more fake than it is. Is this just another Peruvian mummy peddler who's like, I don't want him selling his mummies, so I'm going to debunk his mummies with a llama skull, right? Like, you don't know if any of these people are like, oh, it was debunked by this guy. Who is that guy?
But I still want to know where the money's coming. Like, if these people are doing all this work, they have to get money from somewhere. Like, you're not gonna do all this,
Selling
and you're not gonna put all this
mummies.
time in unless you're like trying to sell a book or a movie or
They do
something.
have books. You got this deal with Gaia TV. You've got
Right.
somebody bought those mummies to send them to the university, right? Now, Thierry Yamin, and this is why I think maybe he's the mastermind behind all this. At one point, he wanted to do a dig at Machu Picchu. So the Peruvian government is like, "Hey, hold on a second. We have to vet this guy." Right? They contact the French government because he's from France. The French government says, "Yeah, he's a French citizen. He's never taken any. He has no scientific archaeological background.
He's just a
He's
guy.
just a guy. Don't let him dig at Machu Picchu." They say, "Don't do it."
Right.
Then I find that in February 2017, Yamin uses this service called Ululi.com. It's like
Okay.
a Kickstarter to
All right.
crowdfund what's known as the Alien Project to do research on Peruvian mummies. His Alien Project website has a chronology of facts page, and it contradicts what's told in the Unearthing Nazca show. Now, is that just because the show was trying to make it more interesting? But remember, Thierry specifically said that he never claimed these were alien bodies. But in 2017, he's crowdfunding the Alien Project to get
Right.
tests done on alien mummies in Peru.
I'd love to know how much he got.
Just for the crowdfunding, 40,000 euros.
Yeah.
Just
All
for
right.
that. Okay. 156% funded in like a couple days. Now, his Alien Project chronological timeline says that he knew the grave robbers had found this site where the mummies are since 2015. Mario is not his contact, but Paul is his contact as of October 2016. And at this point, he's already examined, they say, biological material from the site. So in the show, Thierry's like, "Oh, look, this is all new." In January 2017, he's the associate of Mario that contacts the Peruvian government. Right? So he says that they wind up meeting Mario later. I think it's after the show started. He's like, "Oh, no, this is the guy who's in charge, is Mario." But it clearly states that he went to the Peruvian government, sent them a letter to get them involved, and sent them samples. He's the freaking grave robber. Then he says they finally meet Mario. According to the timeline, it appears that he has possession of several of these mummies before Mosan and Gaia ever get involved. Right? He's already got Maria. He's already got Victoria. Alberto, like in Victoria, those two that come as like a pair, they get Alberto first. His crowdfunders name them, not the team. Like all is on the
Wow.
internet, is right there. His Alien Project are the ones who set up the press conference in Lima. They funded the press conference,
Right.
but he didn't show up. Why? I think he was afraid he was going to get arrested. I think he knew it was up.
I,
And someone's like, "Wait, you're Thierry? I thought you were Mario."
well, I would imagine somebody's going to catch on to
On
it.
his website, on his Facebook page, all those posts from back then are from the Alien Project. And I just thought it was like another website that was reporting on it, but none of them are available anymore. They're all gone. He is the Alien Project, and he is the Inkari Institute. And he clearly labeled these
Wow.
aliens, or he's clearly labeling these as aliens because it's the Alien Project, right? And on the
Right.
website, he doesn't use the word alien, but all these mummies, he's calling them like small gray type biological entities. Which what does that mean? Of course, they're gray because they're covered in this diatomaceous earth that no one uses for mummies because they've been
Right.
modified. Thierry Yamin,
So how old is he?
he's got to be in his
Zach, do you
late
know?
50s now, maybe 60s.
Okay.
But now he's running
My
around
God.
Peru trying to dig in Machu Picchu to find this Piatiti, which probably doesn't exist. And he's funding it all
Well, he probably
with alien mummies.
I would I would imagine that even if he says he's going to dig, no matter where he's going to dig, he already has some of these cooked up somewhere in a cave or in a closet.
Yeah,
Um, and he's just, that's all a smokescreen just to say, you know, look what we
yeah,
found. Uh, it's kind of ridiculous, but it's amazing. It's like it's fascinating how you could even manipulate this to the point where you're going to be in front of the government
but he's not.
and you're going to be able to well, no,
So
but
that's what I'm saying.
somebody was
So
right.
back in 2017, there's another video on YouTube of this guy who looks suspiciously like the kind of blurred out footage of Mario, who is showing these disassembled, like cut off three-fingered hands and these little mummy skulls and all this. And he's like, oh, I don't want anything for them. I will give you free samples. You test them. It's too expensive for me. I think this is the guy that
Right.
makes the freaking mummies for him. So here's the messed up thing now. So I think either that or he's another mummy peddler who gets money for it. You got Yamin who
Right.
gets money for it. And now someone from that team from 2017 was like, hey, there's money in this. Let's run with it. And now they got either they went and found more of these little mummies or they had someone make them for them. They take them to the Mexican government because remember, it wasn't that long ago that the Mexican president took a picture of an elf in a tree.
That's true.
So of course they're gonna run
That's
with it.
very true. um I just like, what could be the penalty for grave robbing? You would imagine if there's got to be a way that they could get them.
There's a high penalty for grave robbing, but if you're making
Right.
them, there's no grave robbing involved.
Well, but if you're if you're grave robbing to get the bones
There's no
to
evidence that they're
make them,
even bones. The guy who
that's
was
I
in
guess, yeah, I
charge of
guess.
all of this testing is the same guy who thought a mummy from a museum was an alien back in 2016. He is now the guy because if you look at the news, now they're talking about the testing of these mummies. Like Mexico is testing these mummies now to find out their authenticity. You know who's in charge of that? Benitez,
Oh
the
my
guy
god.
from 2015 with the freaking Roswell slides. You can't trust any of these people. They're all crooks. And here's poor Musan,
Oh my god.
who's like, I've cracked the story of the century, takes it to the government. His career is over because someone's going to get a hold of these things and they're going to determine that they are human mummies or human bones or they're llama skulls or they're paper mache and somebody's going to jail.
I would imagine, yeah,
Or they cover it up.
I agree with you there. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to
Or they
jail.
might just cover it up because this is a huge embarrassment. With all this backstory, how the hell does the Mexican government allow these people to run a congressional hearing just with the bat and the Roswell slides and the skinned monkey?
But you would have to imagine that somebody was sitting there or standing there and they wheeled in these things and they had to get checked. Like, there had to be a security measure at one point
Did they?
where they're like looking at them and somebody's like, "Hey, what's this about?" Like, I don't think,
You
somebody should have been like, "Hey, I don't think we should go through
you would
with
think so.
this."
Now here's the weird thing too. Not at any point during that congressional hearing did I see a single congressman say a word. It was all
Well, that's
testimony. There
right.
was no
So
question
they
and
could have
answer.
just been there and they had no idea what was happening. They could have just got pulled in and they're like, "What are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
what's actually going on here?"
Was it just a press conference that they're calling a congressional hearing? Does Mexico even have a Congress? They even called a Congress?
That I don't
Like, I
know.
don't know.
I don't know.
This is so freaking bizarre. But it all comes back to the fact that they're fake. They're not even the real mummies from the show.
They're They're the
They're
fake
the fake
mummies.
fake. The translation, like the fixed translation on Thierry's Facebook page actually calls them,
Yeah.
duplicates or replicants. Like, these aren't even
Oh my
like, he's
god.
like, "These aren't even real." But I really think that he is, like, that was his thing. He's peddling these, because people collect this stuff. They do, and
Yeah, I
they
was
don't
gonna say
care if
that.
it's real.
Yeah.
They don't care. If they got something that looks real enough, they can put it in their $1,000,000 mansion and go, "Look, I got an alien," but they don't care.
Right.
But now he's against them because they're taking money out of his pocket.
Well, yeah,
They
because that was
That
his
was his
deal.
deal.
He's got like a storage container full of these things. He's like, how am I going to
It's like,
unload
yeah,
these now? Where am I going to
nobody
get?
wants Yamin mummies anymore, they want Musan mummies.
No. Right. So that's the best part. He's sitting there. The other guy's what's his name? Masan is like he's like this is a great idea. How can I?
I don't know about that, though.
No,
I don't think that's, I mean, unless he's a fantastic actor, which is possible. But he has a show from 2019 called Musan's UFO Files. I watched it last night. It's largely in Spanish, and the subtitles are, so you're just kinda watching it. It's the worst freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. It is, but there's some interesting footage, but so much of it just looks so faked, and it's basically a documentary on him and his career,
right.
but then they're showing these UFO things on there because he had this show called, like, Third Millennium. That was a UFO show, and then when that went off the air, they gave him another show called Musan's New Millennium, and it's just the same show. Right? And he's been doing this for, like, he was on 60 Minutes. He's got it's he's got some
Oh my
credentials,
god.
but the guy clearly is just, I think, and it may have initially started as something like Geraldo Rivera, right? Now, Geraldo Rivera is not an idiot. I think he's still active in, like, law,
I think.
and I think he's a lawyer.
I know he's still
He's
out
still
there.
out there,
He's still like,
but, like,
yeah.
what made him popular? The Al Capone thing, right? I think he was smart enough to look at that and go, "This is gonna be so bad, but it's gonna get my name out there." And it got him started. But you don't see him doing that stuff anymore. You don't see him involved in it anymore.
No.
He's like, "You know what? I'll just go by the name Geraldo. I'll put out all this stuff. It'll make me famous, and then I can go do what I wanna do." I think he did it the smart way. I think maybe that started to happen with San, and he just bought into it. He never diverged. He was just like, "Yep."
I actually want to see a movie of this. Like, I would love to see this whole
Well,
story
let's start a
played out.
crowdfunding on Ululi, and we'll call it the Alien Project Part 2, and we'll make a fortune.
The little stick figures, little
Yeah, little
popsicles.
bats on sticks will be great. I could see it working. But
My God,
it's, the story is
like
more fascinating than the actual mummies. And that's actually one of the articles I found where it's like the story behind these is better than the mummies.
but I like just the human aspect of it. Like that's where I get fascinated. Like how like to say you're going to con people and con a government or con the whole world, but when it gets like how many decades has this been going on? Like, do they just keep going? Like, do they just wake up one day and go, okay, what other layer can we put onto
Are
this
they in
now?
too deep? Like, that's the other
I
thing I'm
think they
thinking.
might be.
Like, maybe,
Yeah.
like, I think that Thierry got uninvolved and they kinda took over the whole thing, but then maybe they were just happy selling mummies, and then the Mexican government, I mean, like I said, the president took a picture of a freaking elf not too long ago.
Right.
Did he reach out to Masan, and he's like, "You gotta show these," and he's like, "Oh, no, I don't." And he's like, "No, you gotta do this." He's like, "No, I don't want it," and they're like, "You can go to prison if you don't." He's like, "Uh-oh." And now he's just stuck. He's in it too deep. He can't get out. Is that what's going on?
It kind of like if you think about like the old days, like in like the old movies where like you'll be walking down the street and there'll be like a dark alley and somebody's got a van and be like, hey, you want an alien mummy? Hey, look at this one. I got a 5 foot alien
This
mummy.
was
I
just a
got a
skull.
2 foot alien
This
mummy.
one's got eggs.
Yeah,
What do you got? What do you want?
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there's
yeah.
evidence that people like there's videos out there of people making these things. So, but so many people jumped on that debunking with the llama skull. Did you ever like I watched that and it's like an overdub of a guy who's showing like the skulls. But the
I can't
guy who's
remember which one I saw,
is it the one
but
with the guy?
it was something like that where they turned it. You could they
Yeah,
turned the skull
but
and
it doesn't
you could
match.
see how
It
it
doesn't
fits.
exactly match. But the guy who's overdubbing it, it sounds like he's trying to impersonate George Takei. He's like, if you
I didn't.
look at the bone, it's clearly just turned over. It's like, what? Like this is just hokey in and of itself. But when they turn the bones over, show like the femur's actually supposed to be here, it doesn't match what they're
Right.
showing. It doesn't line up. And of course,
So
it's just they're turning things
it's
over.
just a
Yeah,
debunking.
they're just debunking.
Yeah.
But again, like I took screenshots of like the actual scans from the show and looked against that video and they don't match up. I'm like, where'd they get these? Was it somebody else's mummies? But when they take like the llama skull and they put it over the skull on the X-ray, well, of course it's going to look like it fits because you're covering the picture with a bigger skull.
It's but like I would like to actually see these people making these. Like I mean, I don't care that much. Like to go down a rabbit hole and look. But like if you're went through all this work to try to fool or like even like how much how do they think they're even going to fool like either an archaeologist or like someone who's in the medical sciences like how on earth could you even think that you could take a whole bunch of bones that don't belong together and
Money.
well I guess that's what it
Yep.
is. It's all
It's
about the
all
money.
about the money. Show me the mummy.
Yeah.
This is all money motivated. Who knows what they are. Even if they're real, it doesn't matter anymore because there's so much of a conspiracy. I guess no, there's just a bullshit story surrounding these mummies.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Now, is that the point? Right, let's look at it from the other side. Are these things real, and someone's just trying to muddy the water so much that no one's ever going to pay attention to it?
Well, it could like well I don't know in
I
the
don't think
world
so, but you
today
never know.
like yeah like you would think that I guess if it's so outrageously if it looks so outrageously fake maybe people will be like, well, you're not going to put this out there unless it was real because you're not going to be able to pull this
Exactly.
off.
Like it's so fake looking, it must be real, right? It's
Right.
like, well, of course, it looks fake. It's alien.
Yeah. The minute I saw those, I was like, what the heck? Kind of paper mache,
It looks like carved. It looked like something I
like
made in art class when I was a kid. They're like, here, make
it
a
just looked like even if, when they had them in the boxes, like the stuff is falling off them, like they're just disintegrating, but not in a real
because they're
way. They're
authentic.
just like turning them to
Yeah,
dust.
that's what happens when you have you don't kiln your clay right. It falls apart.
Yeah. Well, when you're storing them in a cave, and you're putting them together and you're
Yeah,
putting them
in a
like that,
cave.
that's what I would like. I would like to know, like, did they put them together and then they put them in this cave for like 20 years or 30 years just to see if they could age them?
Maybe.
Or were they like in a dehumidified kind of facility? Like,
You
I want to know the
I
backstory.
wonder if maybe this all started because the timeline from the Alien Project clearly states that the first one that was found was one of the small ones. Like the large one didn't come around for like 2 or
Right.
3. So it's completely opposite what the show says. But it makes me wonder if they found one. Like maybe they did find one of these in a tomb somewhere. And I mean, we know that Egyptians used to mummify cats, and there are petroglyphs of three-fingered beings in ancient civilizations. Was this some kind of like a deity to them? And they'd take bones and they would make one and they'd bury it with a person to protect them or guide them, right? And someone finds one and they're like, "Oh my god, you know what we could do with this?"
Right.
And they
Right.
just start recreating them. Like maybe there was a real one and it wasn't an actual being. It was just a golem, or whatever you want to call it, like a
That's a good
puppet,
word.
right, to guide someone to their afterlife. But once it was found, someone was like, "Oh my god, these look like aliens." And we found this,
Well, I
we could
guess
look what we could do.
if you get the right person, if you found something like that and you could sell it, there's a whole lot of people in this world that would do the same exact thing.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, imagine that. Imagine if you. So what I found is like the Inkari Institute, like where uh, Yamin is like located, is about 200 miles from the Nazca area, like where they supposedly found these. Now that's like the difference, like from us to Pittsburgh. Now, if I thought I could go to Pittsburgh and dig up some old dolls that could make me a millionaire, damn right I go out there and take those things and then be
Right.
like, yeah, my friend Mario found these. I'm
Yeah.
just I'm just the middleman. Give me some money.
My God. I would really like to know how much they made in total.
It's got to be a lot.
And like like there has to be so much money in it that they just have to keep going, or they're paying people off, or or it could be a situation where someone is ready to arrest them, and they're like, well, we know this is fake, we know you're a grave robber, but if you don't pay us off, if you give us some money, we'll leave you alone. And then they have to just keep doing this to keep making more money so they can pay people off so they don't get arrested.
The Alien Project in 2017 was requesting 39,510 euros, which would today would be about $42,000. They raised, oh no, that's how much they raised. They were asking for 29,000. So they raised almost $42,000 of money today. It started in April. It's 2 weeks. They raised that much money in 2 weeks. That's a pretty good. That's $40,000 in 2 weeks. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
And then to turn that
you could
around,
survive on that for a
but
while.
imagine being able to turn around $42,000 and turn that into a TV show.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So you're turning into TV show. I don't know if like residuals or whatever else, but then you're getting money for going to speak places, um, books. So you're going to basically, that's what you're doing for the rest of your life.
I should also mention that I reached out to the San Luis Gonzaga University, the ones where the mummies are
Right.
stored, and asked them if they did indeed receive these mummies, if they have them now or at any time had these mummies, and I never got a reply.
Yeah, I would imagine
Let's see. I'm going to check right now and see if.
they're not going to. They probably that all anything like that probably just goes into a spam folder.
Yeah, it doesn't even look like they've read it. It looks like they're, because I just used Facebook Messenger. Like I saw, like I wasn't gonna go too crazy on it. But I said, "Hello, I apologize for this odd question. Is your university now or at any time in the past have possession of the Nazca mummies? If so, what was your conclusion? I always find it best to get the information like this straight from the short source." And I translate it in Google um, into Spanish so that they could, you know. But I never heard anything. I tried. I tried.
Good
Yeah.
try though.
Like I
Yeah,
wasn't gonna go
there
crazy.
might be there might be an
Well,
intern.
for
There
all,
might be an intern looking at Facebook Messenger going,
God,
"This guy
I'm
wants to
one of
know
these
about the
idiots.
mummies."
But for all I know, this university is just another one of Yamin's side projects.
Could be.
Like I didn't research it. That I just know that it exists. I don't. I don't know anything else about it.
It's like it's like a
It
mastermind. Like I could never even think about the amount of layers that are into this. Like
think about it. I mean, if you're saying that this guy Mario doesn't want to give you any of these, and he's being really cagey about it, and suddenly you can give 5 of them to university, just he's going to give them
right.
to you. That to me says that he is Mario, and he's always had possession of these because either he
Like I
or someone
said,
on his team.
he's got a storage container full of
He does. He
stuff,
probably gets them made in
probably.
China. I could probably go online and find a, like, company that makes, Peruvian mummies. Real cheap, 5 cents a piece. It's
Yeah, I
such
want the
a
one with the
crazy story.
three fingers.
It's
Yeah,
such a crazy story. So you can see how, like, just starting off, I was really just gonna look at where these mummies came from. Like, I was gonna look at the, like, just what happened recently. But it's, I mean, and there's still more to find, and I was like, I gotta back away. I got too much. It's getting way too complicated. This is gonna be a season in itself just to tell this story.
oh my god, I mean, it was fascinating to me. I never would have ever thought it would be this complex. um but the long con, always is a good
It
story.
it really is. It is such a con. This is such a con, and I don't know what's gonna happen now. Like, who's actually looking at these mummies? Are they only gonna let Benitez be the one in charge? Because if that's the case, they're always gonna be alien mummies. Somebody has to get a hold of these, like, and say, "Look," maybe Peru, because if they are Peruvian, maybe Peru needs to just be like, "Hey, look, we want these things back," and then let them do some
Yeah,
testing on it or something. Somebody else has gotta get their hands on these things because it's gonna be so bad. It's gonna be so bad when the information
just
comes out.
mark it in our calendar. Like 3 years from now, there might be another story about a couple more mummies being found.
It's probably
Machu
it's probably
Picchu.
happening now. There's still fine. Like, they found skulls, like the elongated skulls, and people are like, "Oh, they're aliens." I'm like, "No, they're not. They're human skulls. They were just, they do it from birth, and they manipulate the skulls." And they're like, "No, they're aliens." Like,
Yeah,
look, I absolutely think that there's no way we're the only living thing in the universe, but every weird thing I see, I don't think is an alien. You know?
of
Like,
course.
it's when you if it looks like an alien, it probably isn't. You know, there's probably an explanation for it. You just look at it and you go, "Oh, no, it's just a turtle that decayed in a weird way." Yeah, there's usually something that you can say, but, like, some people just instantly, like, I love the stories, don't get me wrong, when I see them, like, "Oh, I gotta look into this." Like, I love this story, but, like, the reality of it is, um, probably not aliens. You know,
Probably not.
if what's going on with the UAPs, with all these reports that all these military people have, there's something going on, but I think it's very unlikely that we're gonna find out they're, like, 18-inch, ancient Peruvians,
I
their
would agree with
mummified
you.
friends. I don't think that's what's gonna happen, you know? I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if it's, are these objects actually sentient in and of themselves? Are they just, remote controlled drones from another dimension? Like, who knows what they really are? There's clearly something happening, but nobody's jumping. That's now I kinda understand the separation of UFO and UAP. It's, we kinda always were looking at it as like, "Oh, they're controlling the narrative," but I think it's in a good way. Not, maybe not completely, but it helps take the stigma away from just jumping right to alien. They're just unidentified. We don't know what they are.
Right. I agree with you there. Yeah, it's not, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be creatures that landed here from 1,000 years
Yeah,
ago.
or from the future.
Right.
Like, I think that there's I think the government definitely had their hand forced on them to release this information. I don't think they would have if they didn't have to, and it still does concern me that this is even an actual conversation, because really, if this is what we're talking about, what aren't we talking about? Is this just a cover story for something else that's has nothing to do with extraterrestrial or aliens? Like, there's something else that we're hiding, that we've done, or that we're gonna do, or that we're trying to do, that they're like, "Oh, just give them aliens for a little bit," and they won't even pay attention to this other bullshit we're doing. That's the scary thing right now.
It's like we gotta fill in the blank from until football starts. We need something else. Let's give them
Yeah,
aliens.
I wonder how long this will last in the news cycle, this Mexican mummy thing, before people, because I mean,
I don't know.
nobody's talking about the 4 UAP we shot down right after the Chinese balloon. That just vanished, and nobody.
I just think people are so trained anymore to you look at something and then you move on. That
Well,
It's all, I don't even want to say it's like smoke and mirrors, because people themselves aren't even going to look into it.
it is the panopticon.
You know,
It's the
the what?
prison without walls, right?
Oh,
You never have to worry about people finding the truth, that they just have them worried about other things, right? And we stay in our lanes because we picked our teams, and that's what you do.
right.
So tell
You wake
them
up,
whatever
you
you
go to
want.
work, you keep your head going in the same
Yeah.
direction. You get mad at the other guy, and then you do it all over the next day.
Because I mean, how many times have we heard it, like, just recently? There's always something that is, you got, oh, recession's got to happen. You can't make enough money. You're not allowed to, like, they want people to stay in their homes. They want the working class to stay in their homes so that the rich can go out and play. They don't want to deal with us. That's what it seems like. So yeah, why not throw them aliens? Throw them UAP. Go ahead. That will keep them busy for a while. They won't see what we're doing over here. And then here comes Jaime Maussan, aliens, and they're like, "Oh crap, what is this? Oh my god!" He just threw a huge monkey. Maybe he did us a great favor by throwing this out there, because maybe it might throw off whatever the plan actually is. Because now they're like, "Man, he's got alien bodies. Like, how did this guy get these things?" It doesn't matter if he made them or not, man. That just puts such a spotlight on things right now we don't need.
Yeah, I agree with you though. It seems like, well, not this, but it seems like there's so many distractions in life anymore. You just never know what you should really be paying attention to, or what's actually going on, because you're always trying not to pay attention to stuff like
Yeah.
this, or something else, whatever is in your echo chamber that you live in.
All right, so I guess maybe we should wrap
Yeah.
this one up. I mean, this was a huge. There was just too much. Like, there's no way to break this down any simpler than what I did.
It was super
Well,
entertaining.
that's the
I
point.
have to be honest with you, because I would have never gone down this rabbit hole myself.
I
It
didn't
would
really
have
want
never
to.
happened.
It was not my
No,
intention. I thought this
no.
would be a fun story to talk about for like 10 minutes, and like a week later, I'm like, what just happened? Oh my god, my head hurts. So I hope you guys enjoyed this and the return of Rocco to the show. You guys start doing some research. You got quite a story to follow up on here.
I don't know if I could go down this kind of a rabbit hole, but I'll find
That was
something.
not, again, that was not intended to be that long, but it is what it is. So, yeah, the episode 507 in the books is probably could be 507 to 508, but I'm gonna do this as one big long episode. We haven't done a long episode in a long time, and I like it because when it's just me talking, it's a different show. It's a different thing. There's having someone to bounce things against. It just makes it more interesting for me, and hopefully for
Well,
everyone.
yeah, because otherwise you need that human interaction.
Yeah,
We all do.
because if just myself, I would have ripped through that in 30 minutes, and it would be so incomprehensible because it's just so much information. That is my stomach. Okay, I don't think I can edit that out. It's like 5:30. I gotta eat.
Yeah, it's time for dinner.
So thanks for listening to the Primitive Intelligence Podcast. Welcome back, Rocco. And
Thank you.
yeah, now we're back to the same thing that we had back in seasons 1 and 2. Because just recently I've been wrapping it up and just been like, see ya. That's the end of the episode. But I got no close now. I got no way to close.
See ya.
See ya.